Welcome to InfoSec World 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio on the expo floor at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort in Orlando. I am your host, Mandy Logan, and joining me for this interview is Marene Allison, CISO, advisor to Sakura. Welcome, Marene. How are you?
I have many titles, so
You do?
It's okay. I'm an advisor to Sakura and a number of other small VCs helping them along.
But you have been and held fantastic and substantial roles as a CISO yourself.
Oh yeah, no, I did that. I retired and I've recovered from being a CISO.
How did you recover? How did you do that?
Well, it took a while. So, of course, I was at Johnson & Johnson right as we were doing the vaccine. So that was a lot of stress. And, there's always I'm okay, but the reality was it took about 6 months afterwards for me to be able to breathe and read and feel comfortable and not feel like attached to my cell phone or my computer all the time.
Oh, absolutely. I would. It boggles my mind to think about the intricacies that you have faced and with your team during that time. And of course, you had such a substantial pathway toward getting to that point, right? You pulled from many things that you had put forth effort to learn through decades.
Oh, it's absolutely correct. I mean, one of the things I always said, I was about ready to retire before COVID struck, and then my company, Johnson & Johnson, said, okay, we're going to make a vaccine. And I thought to myself, if not me, who else could be in this position? And this is not the right time to leave. So I delayed my departure a couple of years, but I always felt like I could reach into my quiver and pull out another arrow. I understand about insider threat. I understand about nation state attacks. I understand about this. And it was bringing all of that type of elements together over the course of the career.
And now with that, was there more focus then on your part being the securing of the pipeline that allowed the vaccines to go out, or more on the adjustments that needed to take place in the Johnson & Johnson workforce?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. We're done here. We understand now.
It was really, to make a drug at a pharmaceutical corporation takes 10, 15, 20 years normally.
Right.
And we were able to accelerate the pipeline. And again, Johnson & Johnson used some of the things they had learned in the past. They made a vaccine for Ebola.
Right.
It's not commercial, but it was to help Africa and to reduce Ebola spread. And so we used our quiver and our arrows to be able to create what was needed for the vaccine. But when you accelerate any process that takes decades in a company, you will see things like, oh, okay, that gives us an opportunity here. And so we spent a lot of time looking at opportunities to make sure that the vaccine could be produced and distributed without interruption.
Beautiful. And I will say from my viewpoint, being able to pull off such a grand scale and myriad organizational point type of mission, that is separate from gender, sexuality, the identity as a woman. That's just taking care of what is needed because you had those skills and those quivers. Yet I also am curious because you were part of the first co-ed class at West Point. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. And now, I will pull a little bit of a parallel from my own life, not in the same scenario, but I came from very male-dominated industries, and what I had done previously was 3% female. 3% female across the board. So when I ended up around ethical hacking and cybersecurity and looking into this career field, the fact that it was 24 or 25% female was like, oh, this is a haven. This is magnificent.
We made it now.
We've made it. And because I felt that coming from construction industry that was further entrenched, that coming into cybersecurity focused, it was a new industry. It was less than 20 years old, and there were more pivot points available. So I'm curious, with going through the first co-ed class at West Point, Do you feel that that resolve and the determination of what you knew you could do is part of what have carried you forward to right now, being able to advise numerous boards at once?
You know, Mandy, I don't know how many people have told me, "Oh, you only got the job because you're a woman,"
And the
and I laugh, and I'm a West Point graduate, and I have electrical engineering,
right,
and I was an FBI agent
right.
and head of security for 3 major corporations. Yeah, probably because I'm a woman. And, I think people will throw things at you when they feel intimidated by you,
Right.
but I'm not going to be intimidated by their lack of knowledge and expertise. And what I see is we move into those spaces and we work well. Sometimes it's harder for us. Maybe sometimes it's a little easier. But for the most part, we have the skills and expertise and we just have to use them. And it's when we get entrenched in what others think and concerned with it. And I'd just be like, scoff. No, I don't care. I'm just moving forward. Good for you. My company's got it.
Correct. I identify with definitely having that, no, this individual, you just provide what you are naturally capable of providing.
Right.
You move forward. And I will say to your point, like I was told repeatedly growing up that to excel in the male dominated world, I needed to be 10 times better than the average guy that would apply for it in order to make it, which meant now I look back and I go, oh, I literally had the skills and the ability to a substantial degree. And that's incredibly comforting. Um, and kind of moving away from that, I want to take a part of that into the discussion on AI and AI adoption. Now, stay with me here because I do have a purpose on this, and it is not to overwhelm you. Um, in my anecdotal experience, there's a lot of times where I feel a traditionally more female appearing brain will adapt to AI in a different way than a traditionally appearing male brain will. And a lot of times I see that they get substantial um, results from the same AI tools that their male counterparts have. Have you noticed that at all, or is that just something that I seem to notice?
I look at it a different way. I don't think it's on a line of male and female.
Okay.
I think there'll be people with different backgrounds will look at it differently.
Right.
And people from different regions of the world will look at it differently, depending upon what your whole what you bring to the table.
Right.
And that's part of, like, as a CISO, one of the things was the diversity. It wasn't about color, it wasn't about male or female. It was, what would somebody from India think versus somebody from Japan versus someone from the United States?
I agree.
To look at the wholeness of the situation. And I think the same thing happens with AI. I mean, I go into business meetings and CEOs are like, should we even look at this thing called AI? Well, if you don't look at it, you're going to be out of business soon, my friend, because everyone else is looking at it. Versus if you talk to a bunch of physicians or in the medical field and like, oh my God, AI is going to revolutionize how we look at cancer. We can solve curing cancer. And I think those are the important pieces of it, where you have to weigh at, hey, maybe we shouldn't use this, to, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread, and it sits somewhere in the middle with some controls, that we get the best out of it.
And I fully agree, and I generally go back to that each individual neurological system, every person's wetware operates consciousness differently,
Right.
and interacts with data and technology differently. Now, before we began recording, you mentioned some about what I would summarize as being able to get clearer or cleaner data from generative AI or AI bots and agents. And we discussed it as it's even helpful for us as individuals getting to translate our thoughts into corporate ease.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest is a lot of corporations have the Chat GPT as part of their systems. Now, they have controlled what the data goes. There's not always outbound data, but it's learning about its company. So when you have someone from IT who can only speak, IT geek or cyber geek,
Right.
and you have to present something, because that was one of my hardest jobs as a CISO, was I've got to take what my SOC analyst has just told me, and I now have to translate it into what I'm going to tell the CEO. What's the risk? What's important? What does it mean for our company? And that would take me hours. If I could do it in 5 minutes, I'd be in. I'd love that. Sign me up for that AI.
For sure. And now, for myself, I feel like there's a certain amount of mental load and fatigue that is removed from me and allows me to be a clearer operative in whatever thing I am taking care of because I used AI or my bots or I used specific LLMs.
Right. Oh no, it's magnificent. Especially, IT folks are not always known as the great literary writers,
True.
and to be able to take something you've written and to be able to give it to AI, and it comes back with something that is intelligent, comes across very knowledgeable and story-like, versus it being very IT. I love it. I mean, I've always loved my IT engineers. They know they're my faves, but don't put them in front of the board to talk about the business
Right.
risk of not Petya,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And the inverse. I mean, I feel like it also gives the perhaps non-technical, at least not cybersecurity ingrained executives a chance to go, hey, Grok 4.5 expert, give me more detail on what
What
my
does this
team,
mean?
what does this mean? Because I actually do want to support our security teams. I actually do want to get
Correct.
and understand what's going forward.
Well, and you also have some cybersecurity folks that may be more on the what I call, like, if there's any vulnerability whatsoever anywhere, then you're going to go to security hell, which may or may not
I
be
agree.
really the business risk. And so it also helps the business executive to be able to understand what are you really talking about and what is the risk there. And one of the things, no matter what the risk was that came out or what vulnerability was, the first 24 hours was the what does this mean to my company? Is this really do I have this technology that they're even talking about?
Right.
When NotPetya came out, and it was MEDOCs. So we run in SCCM, where do we have MEDOCs? And it comes like, we have one group in China and one group in the Ukraine. I'm thinking it's not the one in China, so now let's focus on the Ukraine. And when we find these things out, it is extremely helpful. And then what is the business risk here?
Oh, yes. And I'll speak very quickly on that because one of my philosophies now is that the use of AI can actually unburden the workforce. We know this, and we're looking
Right.
at automation. We know that the data heavy and driven decisions can be aggregated and much more easily used by looking at summaries from AI versus humans having to try to go through the bog of all of the data.
Right.
Um,
Well, how about when you're trying to set something up, right? I mean, remember in the days when you'd have to take out the warranty books and you're
Right.
reading through on the setup versus the QR code or
Right.
versus the YouTube video or
the
right?
app that you can absolutely like
Yeah.
oh, it takes you step by step by step. And I mean, I like to believe that at some point that means that printers won't be the death trap of every bit of technology, but I'm not sure we're there yet.
I don't know. I'm still using my printer more than I want to. HP is very happy with me.
Good. I know that you are here graciously supporting the CEO of Sakura. Is there anything you can share with us right now from your prepared presentation?
First of all, and I'm going to take a little bit out of the technology side, we have a bunch of female CEOs out there in the VC world, and supporting them is absolutely amazing. And Lisa is amazing, and I'm finding it just great. She came from NSA, and her knowledge and expertise. I think you're going to interview her in a little bit.
Yes.
So I find that absolutely amazing. But second is from her work and looking at how the infrastructure is secured and being able to have a technology that you can run a scan or continuous control monitoring of the infrastructure. You know, people like to think you can set and forget the infrastructure, except that they have an entire IT department. And no matter what you do, no matter how good you are at it, things change in the night. And
It's true.
to be able to go through and have a software that's going to help you and assure that nothing has changed, especially in the critical infrastructure areas, is amazing.
It is. Like that is, since my heart is near and dear with critical infrastructure, absolutely. And I will say for our audience, make sure to check out Secura's SCM platform, a new form of software that will provide, is showing great promise and ability to provide a much more thorough coverage, as you're mentioning.
Exactly. And we used to do this before, remember? I mean, it used to be security technicians checking every piece of equipment and going in. The auditors, we don't tell the auditors about it because then they can do it automated too. But when you have that automated, you can now look at and make sure you're secure, your platforms are all secure in the way you intended, without having to manually go in and check.
And that's gorgeous and relieving. And I think it goes along with what I say as all of evolution shows that self-healing systems are the ones that dominate.
Right.
So we will continue with that.
It's secure by design, not by chance.
Exactly. Thank you, Marene, so
Thank
very
you.
much.
It's a great mandate.
This is wonderful. Thank you to our audience for joining us. For all InfoSec World 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/ISW. Stick around. We'll be back right after this short break with more live interviews.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Marene.
It's great. I think we could go for hours.
We could.